Welcome to lecture 3, where we are looking at using Access or Excel to manage your data. In this course, I want to give you an overview understanding, rather a detailed understanding of when to use Access or Excel in managing your data. In this case, Access will serve as a database and Excel will serve as a spreadsheet. So let's go right into it. Access and Microsoft Excel possess many similarities which can make it difficult to decide. I think if you go to my second lecture where I was talking about a spreadsheet and a database, I showed you the differences and the similarities in general between a spreadsheet and a database. So it's always a challenge when deciding, but when you know what you want to achieve and you have an understanding of what a spreadsheet and a database is, particularly Excel and Access, it will be easy for you to decide on which is the best way. For example, both programs can store large amounts of data, can run powerful queries, can analyze, they have analysis tools to slice and dice data. You understand what dicing and slicing is. Both can perform sophisticated calculations that will retain data that you need. However, each program has clear advantages depending on the type of data that you are managing and want to do with that data. For example, if it is your goal to maintain data integrity in a format that can be accessed by multiple users, then access is your best choice compared to Excel. Whereas Excel is better suited for complex numeric data that you want to analyze in depth. In many cases, you can use both programs together depending on what you want to achieve. And the conclusion of that, I'll walk you through on how you can do that. Let's look at Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access is better for managing data generally. It's better to help keep your data organized natively. That's what it is made for. It's optimized for that. It's easy to search your data. It's easy to make it available, to make your data available to multiple simultaneous users. Let's look at Microsoft Excel. Generally, it's better for analyzing. It can perform complex calculations which you can modify the way you want compared to Access easily without any need of programming, without any need of learning programming. Microsoft Access is better for exploring possible outcomes of your data. If it's also able to produce high quality charts compared to Microsoft Access. So depending on what you want to do, if you want all these, you can use them. You can use together, Access and Excel. So if you use Access to store your data and Excel to analyze it, you gain the benefits of both programs. So before you decide which program to use, you may want to compare the benefits of each program, learn when it is best to use one or the other, and find out how to work with both programs to achieve exactly the results that you want. So let's go in detail quickly and see where they are different and where they are the same. So in doing that, there are some parameters we will use to compare. The first one will be data storage. How do you want to store your data? how do you want to store your data? So is it flat or is it relational? Is your data flat, relational? By that, what I mean is a flat is a single table, because a spreadsheet is natively designed to accommodate flat data. So it's just one table. You can't relate one table to another table natively. You have to use formulas or functions in order to achieve that functionality. Whereas for a database, the tables are naturally related. You have to relate them for the database to work. So data that can be efficiently contained in a single table or worksheet is called flat, like I've explained. For example, if you want to create a simple list of customers with only one address and contact person for each customer, Excel might be the better choice for you. However, if you want to store a more complex customer list that contains billing and shipping address for each customer, or multiple contact persons for each customer, Access is a better choice. Why? Because you're going to have two separate tables. You're going to have a customer table where you just enter the details of the customer, and then you're going to have a table where you just enter the addresses. So meaning one customer will be related to the address in another table, and in that table you can have a one-to-many relationship, where in the address table there will be many addresses linked to that person, or even contact persons linked to that. So in a relational database, like I've been explaining, you can organize your information in multiple tables. In a well-designed relational database, each table is flat and contains information about only one data type. For example, if you create a customer database, the names of the customers should be stored in one table, whereas those customer billings addresses will be stored in a separate table. Storing addresses separately from names is a good idea, because each customer can have more than one address, and you want to be able to enter multiple addresses for each customer without having to re-enter that customer name for each address. So if you want relational data, natively a database access will be your best choice. While you can achieve this in Excel, but you may have to do some formulas and functions, which may not be necessary if your goal is to have relational data. The other feature you have to look at it in storage. Do you want to store your data locally on your PC only, and then you are the only one who's going to be giving out reports, or you want to have external access? So for example, you can use Access to connect to data from a variety of external data sources, so that you can view, query, and edit that data without having to import it. You can use Excel to connect to a wide variety of data sources as well, including Access, but you cannot edit that data to change the source data through the Excel user interface. So this is why learning these tools is extremely powerful, because you can connect Microsoft Excel to different databases. Could be Oracle, it could be SQL Server, it could be Postgres, it could be MySQL, different database sources that you can access that data for analysis, because Excel is optimized for analysis. Whereas with Microsoft Access as a database, you can use it to connect to other databases like Oracle, which I've already mentioned, and you'll be able to view your data, you'll be able to query, you'll even be able to edit that data without having to import it, and you realize that you are able to communicate with a database without even using structured query language. That's how powerful these tools are. They make programming not so much necessary in almost all the tasks and assignments that you can do that are related to data storage, management, and visualization. The other thing that you can look at is data integrity versus flexibility. What is your interest? Is it the integrity of the data or the flexibility of it? How accurate is it supposed to be? In Access, you can use auto number data type, which is not available in Excel, to automatically generate a unique number for each record. So in this case, every entry you make will have a unique identifier, meaning you will not be able to repeat that entry the way you have entered it. But in Excel, you can only use data validation to be able to restrict the type of data that you enter in a cell, whereas you do not have the auto number feature that prevents you from duplication. So what do you want? Data integrity, where you don't want duplicates, you want data in a certain way, or flexibility. So these are the things that you put into consideration as you choose. Like I mentioned, for Excel, there's data validation that is there. So there's more freedom in entering data in Excel than in Access. So the other thing that you look at is data analysis. You've looked at how do you want to store the data, and you've identified. So how do you want the data to be analyzed in addition to what you have identified? So in data analysis, you look at querying. Querying is basically asking questions from the data that you've stored. How often are you going to be asking those questions? If you often have to view your data in a variety of ways, depending on changing conditions or events, Access might be the better choice for storing and working with your data, because you can create queries that will be giving you updates. Queries are basically questions from your data, and you get the answers. Access lets you use structured query language queries to quickly retrieve. And the beauty is that those structured query language queries, you get to make them using an interface. No need of writing the syntax of SQL to query your data. You actually use a user interface in order to do that. You can also use Access to summarize your data the same way you can summarize in Excel. But if your objective is to be getting the same kind of reports without a need of different conditions almost all the time, then Access might be your better choice. The other thing to look at is modeling. In modeling, Excel is the better option. By modeling, basically is what if analysis, where you focus the outcome of your data. You get to pre-analyze your data and get different outcomes based on the data that is coming in. So in order for modeling, Excel will be a better option. That's why you've seen most of the data modeling assignments or courses, they are more centered with Excel, because you can do many things in there. What if analysis allows you to run different scenarios in your data, such as best case and worst case scenarios, comparing the results data from several occasions or scenarios in a summary report. No similar feature of what if analysis is available in in Access. You can use formulas and functions to further determine outcome of different scenarios compared to the what if analysis. So modeling your data, Excel is your better option. The other thing you look at is pivoting and charting. In both programs, you can create pivot reports and charts. However, Excel provides more advanced pivot table reporting and charting features than Excel does. This is where Excel is extremely powerful when it comes to analyzing your data. If you plan to create extensive pivot table reports or provide professional looking charts regularly, you use pivot table reporting and pivot table charting in Excel instead of the same features in Access. And in this introductory beginner level course, I'll be able to show you how to create tables, pivot charts, how you can use them, how you can develop any of those reports. In level 2, I will go in depth to work with pivot tables and pivot charts and how you can work with functions and formulas. So basically, level 1 will give you the basics understanding that you need to do level 2, and level 3 mainly is focused on automating what if analysis. So it's basically focused on modeling any type of data that you have. Well, let me not drift away from what we are looking at. So the other thing we look at is multi-user collaboration. Who is supposed to have access to that data which you have stored, which will be analyzing? Who's going to be doing the analysis? Is it just one person or there are different people? Who's going to be entering the data? Who's going to be analyzing? Things like that. So in concluding, both Access and Excel can be used in collaborative environments, such as Windows SharePoint services and network file shares, but there are differences in the way the data can be accessed by multiple users. SharePoint services is similar to Google Drive, Google Sheets, where you you can collaborate, and network files, it's where you connect laptops in a work environment where you can share a folder and different people have access. So what's important is to understand how you can access the data in Access or Excel in order to determine which one to go for. Multiple user access to data is available, like I've already mentioned, in both Access and Excel. But what's important is how. So under normal operation, Access will let multiple users open a single database at the same time. This works well because Access locks only the data that is being edited. As a result, other users can still edit different records without conflict. So you could share on a network file or on a SharePoint website, which is part of Microsoft services. And you can, in Access, you can enter data. It's only the record that you are editing, the row or the cell that you are editing, that will be locked. Meanwhile, other rows and records will be available to other users who can also edit. So if you're going to be editing, if the people will be entering and editing the data are more than one person, then Access might be a better choice. Why? Because in Excel, you can share the workbook with others, but multi-user collaboration function best works when one person is working on it at different times. So I can share the document to my colleagues, but when I'm working on that document, the workbook will be locked. My colleagues will not be able to have access to the entire workbook. It's only when I'm done working on the entire workbook that my colleagues now have access. And at the time that any of my colleagues will have access working on it, I can't work on it. I have to wait for them to finish. So these are some of the things you have to put into consideration. Users of an Access database can collaborate on a set of data like I've mentioned, while users on an Excel can only collaborate on a document and at different times. So the other thing you look at is using Windows SharePoint services for collaboration, and in doing that, Access provides a variety of ways to collaborate with multiple users on a SharePoint site. So if you don't know what a SharePoint is, this is something you can look at. It's part of Microsoft services for collaboration in a work environment or business environment. For example, you can upload a full database to a Windows SharePoint services document library, make forms and reports available on Windows SharePoint services views, and link a database to that data that is stored in a SharePoint. And you'll be able to have access to the reports, the forms for data entry by many people in your organization that you can choose who has access. While in Excel provides only one way to collaborate with multiple users, which is on a document. You can upload a workbook to Windows SharePoint library where individual users can check out the workbook to make changes, preventing other users from modifying the workbook. So this could be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on how you want to collaborate on the data. So you have to put this into consideration when you are making your decisions. Users can edit a workbook without checking it out of the library, in which case they must coordinate with other users to avoid data conflict. So it's like in the previously I showed you how in Excel you can't track the actions, while in Access you can track the actions. So you have to communicate more often when you are working with Excel. So using the network folders for data collaboration, if you store an Access database in a shared drive, multiple users can open the database and work with its data simultaneously. Individual records are locked when a user edits. So basically you have two options for collaboration, either SharePoint or a network folder, which in most cases the network folder is what is common, because when you're in the same office, you have access using Wi-Fi to share a particular folder. But with Windows SharePoint services, this is like a website. It could be accessed from anywhere, even at the office. So we've looked at data storage, data analysis, multi-user collaboration. We are still looking at the next one, which is security. So I'll pause to make this video not very long and produce part 2 of this course, or rather this topic. So see you in part 2 of Excel or Access, where we look at security part of the data, how much important is the data. So see you in the next course.